So to create our app, we're just going to use create react app, and we're going to call this grid gallery. So we're installing our packages. Okay, so I've opened my project with WebStorm, and now I'm going to say yarn start. All right, you can see now we have our app up and running, and so now we're ready to start editing our app.
So we're going to go to the React Router website. So you're just going to go to reacttraining.com/React Router. And here we're going to look at some of the examples which we can copy directly into our website to act as a boilerplate.
Let's just first, we could try the basic example here, but the example we're going to end up using here is this called Modal Gallery here. So this Modal Gallery allows you to basically visit a gallery here of different images. And so we're going to use this to create our grid gallery here, where we could use CSS Grid to create a little better looking grid than this. So let's use the basic example. If you're not familiar with React Router, I recommend trying this base example out. So we're going to paste that in here in our app.js. So previously we were exporting that app.js, and now we're exporting this basic example here. Before we do this though, we actually need to install React Router. So we're going to say, look at the, we're going to say quick start here. And so just to let you know, so this is what you need to install here. If you look at the quick start of React Router, so you need to add in React Router DOM. So the way that we do that is yarn add React Router DOM. So we're going to say yarn add React Router DOM. Okay, so now we saved that. So now we're going to save this app.js, and we're going to open our local host here and see what happens. So now just like that, we already have a working example off of the React Router website within our app. And so you can see we're going here, we're rendering the home page, the home, the about route, the topics route, and going into the various subroutes here. Now how this works, if you're not familiar with React Router, we'll just briefly explain this. So we have a basic example being exported, and the basic example is this right here. And this returns a router, so that declares the root router component. And then we have a div inside, which is just a container. But then in here we have some routes. And so what this is saying is when the path is equal to topics, render this component, else render this path, else render this. And so now when you're inside of one of these other paths, you can then match a subroute. So how topics renders the matches this path here. So if we go back to topic here, if we're matching this path here in this topics page, we'd only have this route inside of the topics component here. So if we're in this component, we're rendering this route, what that's going to do is match this. And if so, render this component right here. And so where you put the routes is where the components get rendered. That's the rule. So if you go up here, this route, this is the home page. And above this here, this is always rendered. So you got to remember, the route just returns that component in that spot. So we're always rendering this content here. And so that's a basic example of React Router. When we're on the root / page, we're rendering the home, and this is just what home says. This is the only thing on the about page. And the topics page has a bunch of links to the other routes, which go to these rendering components. And when one of these is present, we render this component a topic. And a topic is rendered right here, topic. And it renders just the parameter here. And the parameter that's passed in is this right here. So this colon parameter name is what specifies the parameter. And then over here, this is an exact match. This just says when we match this path exactly, we want to render this. So let's go ahead, now that we know how the source code works a little bit, let's go ahead and play with it again. We're on the home page. We just have home. We say about, we just have about. We go to topics. We say, please select a topic because we match this exactly. And then we select a topic and we render that various parameter here, params.topicID, which we pass in through the match parameter here, prop. So topics gets passed in the match property from React Router. So that's a basic example. Now we're going to go into React Router, and we're going to go into the Modal Gallery example, and we're just going to copy this whole thing. This example uses a previous location to store the previous route so that it can render both the previous route and the current route at the same time, the previous route being the gallery and the current route being the image. The image will be in a modal, so it's rendering the previous route, which is the gallery, and the modal at the same time. The switch component renders one of those routes exclusively. So it's a pretty complicated example, but
ask me a question if you have any questions about this.
As we save it, we need to clear the root. And now we can see we have the image gallery. So we render a tomato, we go back, we visit the gallery, and we render our images here. Now this is a great template for our image gallery because this is all we need to display our image gallery. We just need a path to an image. We need to be able to close that modal, select another image, open, see that modal, go back to a main homepage if we want to add other content on here, like a landing page or something like that. And then we go here to our gallery and we could do this again. So this is basically the main functionality. Let's just show also that we're going to be doing some responsiveness here as well. So the other feature that I didn't mention actually is when you refresh it on an image. So if I refresh on this image, it'll just go to that image. Now also we're going to be doing some responsiveness here. So if you could see, we do have not really much content to render here, but we're going to be testing the responsiveness of the app as we go. All right.